may stay just as you are, Mrs. Shelley. And now, look at me. Good. Now, please, hold that pose only and do not move. Think of whatever you like and merely be yourself. If you become tired, simply tell me if you can stop to rest.
This position is still acceptable.
Excellent, milady. As I say, simply be yourself.
Sorry, milady seems officious.
Very good, milady.
Be yourself, milady. Who is that? I am no titled lady. I am daughter of the great Godwin, author. Daughter and namesake of the redoubtable philosopher Mary Wollstonecraft, author. Beloved of Percy Bysshe Shelley, philosopher and poet. Heroine of Shelley, consort, Shelley's strumpet. Mother, I have found myself a young man.
Yes, tell me, what is he like?
Like an angel. His name is Percy Bysshe Shelley, and he is 5 years older, son of a baronet. He has blue eyes and a huge halo of blonde hair into which he sticks his fingers, both hands, and then shakes his head. Like you and Papa, he is an author and lover of justice. And he is a scandal. At Oxford, he published an essay on the necessity of atheism, and the old dons expelled him. His most respectable father, Sir Timothy, made an arrangement with the school and insisted that Shelley disavow the publication, and he would then be readmitted. But he refused. And so he has been disinherited.
Is he a champion of the poor, then?
He is, Mother. I have seen him return home without his shoes having given them to a poor woman on the streets.
Like,
he cares nothing for money.
Like your father, then?
Yes. Father has changed. He dwells on money. But my Shelley has offered all his own resources to Father.
Even though he is disinherited?
True, which creates a tension between them. Father is most unkind to Shelley, who has offered himself entirely.
Entirely?
What?
Forgive me, Mrs. Shelley. Would you like to stop and rest?
No. What were you asking again?
I was saying, people claim that you helped your husband to write the Frankenstein book.
No, Shelley helped me.
Ah, but since the author's name is nowhere given and everyone admits that Shelley did write the introduction, people naturally suspect that
People presume. I wrote Frankenstein. My husband insisted that my idea was compelling, so I was moved to accept his advice about the story in many instances. If a genius gave you advice, if Caravaggio offered you advice on painting, wouldn't you be a fool not to listen carefully?
So, would you like to be a writer?
All I have ever wanted was to be a writer, to be worthy of the writing family from which I come.
Yes, the well-known doctor.
And the equally famed Wollstonecraft.
So do you have a second book in mind, Mrs. Shelley?
Frankenstein was my second book. The first was a travel book that came out a year earlier, unless you also count the book I wrote when I was 11.
Even more precocious. I certainly hope they saved it.
How do you mean?
Well, the charming productions of childhood are often applauded, but then even more often discarded or misplaced, and so the evidence of young talent is lost.
I believe you misunderstand. The tale was published.
Oh.
You may not realize the difficulties for a woman who signs her name to her writing. When my mother debated the rights of man with Mr. Edmund Burke in print, she was thoroughly praised as long as her arguments were signed anonymous. But as soon as she openly acknowledged that those arguments were written by Mary Wollstonecraft, she was accused of being disguised as a man.
I do beg your pardon, Mrs. Shelley.
It's nothing really. You are not a well-known artist yourself, am I correct?
Quite true, Mrs.
Perhaps a controversy of your own could help. Why are old men so afraid of Shelley, Mother?
Everyone is afraid of young men.
Why?
They move and change so quickly. They enjoy making people afraid.
Why?
To impress them, especially to impress girls.
Yes, Sister Jane reacts exactly that way.
And you? Does he not frighten you?
Oh, no, he is to me. In him I see myself. I know myself better.
So, a kind of mirror then.
Yes, Mother, excellent, a mirror.
Mirrors do distort, my dear.
But he completes me, and I complete him. We even complete each other's sentences in our notebook.
Look, Mary, I have outlined a list of readings for you. Your father should have all of these books.
Yes, he does, but I cannot read the Greek, Shelley.
Not yet, Mary, not yet. But soon you shall, very soon, my little mine. You shall teach me Latin and Greek, my lovely muse, and you will also teach me beauty. We will study the world together and teach them all to love as we love. Can we not, Mary? Let us drive away all the ugliness and raise this sad old world up to our ideals. If we only dream big enough, we can create that dream. We can people the future with free men and women.
Are you my parent? You are my nightmare.
But you created me.
You were visited upon me.
Why have you given me no name?
But I have named you the monster.
Monster is not a name.
Oh, yes it is, and a most common name.
What does that mean, patchwork?
It means that you are stitched together from many parts.
Dead parts.
Yes and no.
How can dead be yes and no?
Ah, dear monster, most of us are dead in heart.
Dear monster.
Dear indeed.
Then how can you say what terrifies me will terrify others? Yes, I know your mind.
Of course, you come from within my mind.
Then you are my creator.
Did I create you? I found you. I found you before my eyes watching me.
Where did you find me?
At Lake Geneva, on a cold night, in a dreamy darkness.
Are you cold, Mrs. Shelley?
I was thinking of the monster from my story.
Ah, a daydream of a nightmare.
Well put, Mr. Rothwell. He comes to me sometimes uninvited, almost as he did on that first night when he seemed to hover over my bed while I was half asleep.
When you have a ghost story comes to Lake Geneva. Forgive me, but your expression has changed. I believe that after this sitting, we will have enough of an image for you to look at and see how the portrait is developing.
No need. Wait. Am I expected to look whether my eyes look sufficiently bright?
Of course. And whether I have made your cheeks sufficiently rosy also. Would you consider telling me about that ghost story contest?
But Mr. Rothwell, clearly you know about it already.
Oh, not from you. Only from the senseless gossip's versions. Nearly as strange as your monster story. Besides, that way you can sit undistracted without being bored.
Bored? Nothing about that time was boring.
But now?
Sometimes now I do feel that I am alone, with nothing to do worth doing. The last of my kind.
The last of your kind.
That summer at Lake Geneva, that was the year my life began, really. The same year as my monster story. Hardly 2 decades ago, yet it feels like 2 centuries.
Yes, 20 years ago I was a child in a different country.
The treasures of my youth lie buried. How we change, foolishly presuming we understand. But nature is not always forgiving. That was the year with no summer, you know, 1816.
I was still at school then.
Endless rain and endless cold. So cold. Monstrous times. Farmers starving, snow in June. Napoleon was much on our mind. But people were talking of only two things, really. The waltz, the scandalous new dance, and Byron. Lord Byron was the talk of Europe and the Americas too. All the young men wanted to be Byron. All the women wanted him. All except my Shelley and me, and we had him almost all to ourselves. 5 of us were there, the whole cold summer. Shelley and me, Byron and his young doctor, and Sister Jane, who was now calling herself Claire. Claire had tricked us. Shelley wanted to go to Italy, which we both love, but Claire had insisted.
If we go to Geneva, we can meet the famous Lord Byron. Meanwhile, I had already written to Byron and told him if he came to Geneva, he could meet young Shelley and Mary Wollstonecraft's daughter.
And he came. Every day, Shelley and Byron would sail and talk, and every night we all huddled round the fire, reading and talking and taking Polidori's strange medicines.
Polidori?
That poor boy. He also wanted to be Byron, who just used him. Dr. John Polidori was forever bursting in and out of the room with some new restorative for us to drink, which chiefly served to keep LB up all night and talking endlessly.
LB?
Lord Byron. We all had nicknames. Byron had a ridiculous horse and carriage built, an exact replica of Napoleon's. Instead of the initials N on the door, he had his own initials painted on, LB. He laughed at it himself, but Claire would stand for no ridicule of her Byron, and she began calling him
Albay. Genius may choose his own name, don't you think?
And did you have a nickname?
Several. Byron called poor Polidori Polly Dolly.
And Jane became Claire.
She could not abide being plain Jane Claremont. She kept changing it.
And she was she not? That is...
Byron's lover, mostly in her mind. He avoided her quite successfully.
But wasn't there a child?
Yes. Poor, sweet Allegra.
Oh. The ghost story?
Yes. One evening, LB was reading to us horrid German stories from a book, Phantasmagoriana, when he suddenly announced that we must all write ghost stories and judge which was best. Shelley and Byron both produced fragments and quickly discarded them. Polidori wrote a nasty little tale about a vampire.
A vampire?
A seductive, blood-sucking demon. A nobleman who uses others to stay young. The vampire was clearly a picture of Byron at his worst. For me, the contest was an uncomfortable trial. I so badly wanted to show that I was truly the daughter of Godwin and Wollstonecraft, but for days nothing came to me. They would ask me every day. Even Claire had to start on some miserable plot. And finally, one night, as I lay half awake, half asleep, I saw standing over me a giant creature, so grotesque. His eyes were dun-colored, his skin was yellow, his fingernails black. I was terrified. And I had my story. What horrified me would horrify others. And when I told my monster tale, Shelley especially insisted that I must expand my little story. And so I did.
I must ask you, what is a monster?
I should say a creature that is unusually evil. Also a creature enormously large. Or possibly a creature so strange LB? I think not. He causes more desire than fear, but he is a devil.
Claremont, then?
Tempt me not, Satan.
Is Percy Shelley a monster?
He certainly twists our fathers into fury. No. My sweet, generous Shelley has no evil in him. He is my angel.
Is he your Frankenstein?
Don't be impertinent.
Am I real?
Are you real compared to whom?
Am I real as you are real?
Yes, my monster. You are a part of me, and I am a part of you. You may be more real than I.
How could I?
The child may outlive the sire.
I am the child, then.
You are a kind of my brainchild, what? A kind of growing, waking dream. I have no clear word for you except my monster. I cannot explain.
Then who is Frankenstein? Is he real?
He is the young man in my imagination who created you.
From
body parts.
Patchwork.
Yes.
He is a resurrection man.
How do you know that word?
I know your mind. He is a fool.
Yes, in many ways a fool.
Is he you?
Partly.
Is he Percy Shelley? Does Percy Shelley know that he is Frankenstein?
Part Frankenstein.
Your book. You gave it his name. But is it not my story?
No, it is my story.
Are you afraid of me?
No.
Are you ashamed of me?
I think not.
Is Percy Shelley ashamed of me?
I believe he is delighted by you.
Does he believe that Frankenstein is his story?
Possibly.
Mama does not like you sneaking off to Wollstonecraft's moldy grave with Percy Shelley. She says it's morbid.
Oh, Jane, must you run to her with everything? You're just jealous of us. Shelley says he loves me.
Oh, bother. He says the same to me. And you are to call me Clara.
He does not, Jane Claremont.
Well, he acts as though he does.
He says he will shoot himself if I will not go with him to Europe. He said it twice. He showed me his pistol.
You may have him, Shelley. I will have George Gordon, Lord Byron.
You don't even know him.
You know I saw him at the theater.
We were not introduced.
I will introduce myself. I will know him soon enough. And if you go to France with Shelley, I am going too.
You?
Yes. And if not, I will tell Mama you plan to escape. Anyway, you need me.
How could we need you?
I have French and you have not.
But I have Shelley and you have not.
We shall see.
And I have Latin! Mother, I have a fear about Shelley.
Yes, my dear?
He loves me, I know, as well as I love him, but
Yes.
he has loved another before me.
Yes.
She is gone now. Poor Harriet. He was married, though she was not worthy of him.
Not worthy? Why?
When she died, she was carrying another man's child.
Oh, Mary, Mary, only she.
What?
Had you not carried two of his?
But that's different.
So you say, but why did she die?
She drowned herself. She did not leave an explanation.
Mary, did she not die for love? For love of your Shelley?
Possibly.
Would you not die for Shelley?
I would.
Would he die for you?
Oh yes, he threatened to if I would not be with him.
And the child?
How do you mean?
Would he die for your children? Is the question so difficult? Does he love his children?
Of course.
Of course. So you think the father will die for the child then?
Oh, Mother. Shelley and Byron were on fire. Oh, what I had learned listening to their crackling conversations. And not my parents' friends, they were my own. For Shelley, new ideas were everything. To Byron, everything was his. He seemed to be everywhere, and a strange world surrounded them. Across the lake, a hotel set up a telescope for people to watch us. The hotel keeper called us the League of Insects. wanted to see us do monstrous things. Just imagine, and I with baby Wilmots, not 6 months old. But Shelley and Ellie, so far above this world, they were like an angel and devil in philosophical joust. I have never known their match. We were like children listening. In fact, people have been asking me ever since how a mere girl could write such a story.
Yes, I have heard that question. But I wonder, Mrs. Shelley, if you ever were a mere girl.
I certainly was once a little girl. Shall I tell you my Ancient Mariner story, Mr. Painter?
Is it much like Coleridge's poem on the Ancient Mariner?
It is the story of Coleridge, reading from his reworked manuscript of the famous rhyme of the Ancient Mariner. The lonely mariner and his albatross thrilled me to my core. After my papa, Mr. Coleridge was the first man I ever admired. My father's study was always a kind of philosopher's academy. Great minds would come to visit. Joseph Johnson, the publisher that was arrested for his publications. William Blake, who illustrated my mother's books. He would talk of me. He would talk of her and stare at me. Strange, deep men looking hunted. Aaron Burr from America was like that. They would wake me with their reading and arguing down in Father's room. I would creep down the staircase to listen, and the best of them all was Mr. Coleridge, and oh, the night he read his Ancient Mariner, the deep music of his voice, all his coughing, it simply stopped as soon as he began to read. No hesitating or hurry, just the stately concert of melody and idea. Standing there with my mother looking down from above, the fireplace all aglow, Mr. Coleridge read, alone, alone, all alone.
Alone on the wide, wide sea.
And the Ancient Mariner, having killed the beautiful albatross, is haunted by a fantastic spectreship. It looks like a skeleton in the sunset.
Are those her ribs through which the sun did peer as through a grate? And is that woman all her crew? Is that death? And are there two? Is death that woman's mate?
Imagine death, and death's bride.
His bones were black with many a crack, all black and bare I mean. Jet black and bare, save where with rust, of moldy damps and charnel crust, they're patched with purple and green. Her lips are red, her looks are free, her locks are yellow as gold. Her skin is as white as leprosy. The nightmare, life in death, was she, who fixed man's blood with cold.
Listening to Mariner, the wedding guest is transfixed. But I was not the only one awakened by those wild men. Mrs. Godwin, always concerned for the girls, swept into the room and interrupted.
You men! What are you playing at? Look at her! You've snatched her silly. Look at you, you will catch your death. Get back up to bed!
So you see, Monsieur Painter, I was a little girl once, and I had my own adventures.
Yes, Mrs. Shelley, I do see what you mean. And how old were you when you hid behind the furniture to listen to those men talk?
9 years old, perhaps.
And that woman, she was...
Jane Claremont's mother, my stepmother, Mrs. Godwin.
Yes, I think I'm beginning to understand.
But finally my Shelley came and saved me.
Then, roaring tide-like upon the shore, he turns, sighs, and recapitulates once more.
Shelley, no. No, not again.
What's wrong, Mary?
You must not throw poems into the sea. You are not shipwrecked on an island.
It's only a little poem, Mary. If it drowns, we can simply write another.
Think of what might be lost. Have you no respect for the words?
The ideas, Mary. Love the ideas.
His words came so easily. He would throw poems into the waves, even put them in hot air balloons. Do you know the sonnet, Ozymandias, the one about the pharaoh? It hardly took him an hour. and he only wrote it to better a friend who had already written a sonnet on the subject. No respect for the words. So, shall we get to work? Another chapter.
Everyone is easier to edit, my dear.
Oh, that's how you spell enigma.
I doubt this little poem is worth keeping, Pexy.
Nevertheless,
Soon, I must find a publisher for your strange tale.
I wonder whether you will be able.
Mark my words, you will make quite a splash. Mother, did people really think this strange and Gothic tale would be the great book of the age?
What book, son?
Goethe's Sorrows of Werther.
I doubt that any little romance could become the book of the age.
But young people didn't really shoot themselves for unrequited love as Werther did in the book, right?
So they say. I am proud of my heart alone. It is the sole source of everything.
You read it!
Of course, everybody read it. Especially girls, partly because we were told not to.
But not father.
Yes, that is his copy.
Oh,
But those were different times, my dear. When I was a little girl, I firmly believed that my parents between them had written the great books of the age. The vindication of the rights of woman and political justice. Fierce, noble ideals. Revolution was alive when your grandparents were young. How could that be equaled by something called the sufferings of young Werther?
I thought it was the sorrows of young Werther.
In German, die Leiden is the sufferings. Bad translation is bad judgment, dear. What I read and reread was my mother's book. I carried it with me everywhere. And young men would come calling just to meet your grandfather.
That's how you met father.
Yes, we were so young. At 20, I believe you were older than he ever was.
How was he young?
He was like Werther.
How so?
Danger meant nothing to Shelley. He had no respect for death. Ruthless, really cruel.
How was he cruel, mother?
He was so honest, my Shelley. He was perfect youth. Justice to be done. We will go to Ireland and free the entire nation. The poor are everywhere. Give them our shoes, give them our food. Love must be open and generous, freely given to all.
You miss him still.
Yes, I was merely a girl when I met him.
And then you went to Lake Geneva with Lord Byron and the ghost story.
Yes, dear, at Lake Geneva. And my story. You know, Percy, that the monster in my novel also read Goethe's book. He felt that he was like young Werther.
Monster, but he was not in love with any woman, nor would any woman have had him.
But he wanted love. He wanted a mate. But he was rejected by all, and he felt utterly alone.
Young Werther was right about one thing.
What do you mean?
Suffering is for the living. You are correct about the title.
Yes?
Dying is a sorrow, but only the living keep on suffering. But this son is very unlike the father.
He is a good boy. He has had no father to fight against.
He has a mother.
I worry what will become of him.
Not what will become of you.
I will make a way.
A writing woman with no man.
I will make my way.
This son who has had no father to fight, is he content?
He is thoughtful, not bold, and he is quiet and very careful.
Not ambitious for adventure.
Oh no.
Well, Mistress mine, our little schooner progresses splendidly with the say we can give Lord Byron's boat a fair race. Edward and I will set her loose for a good trial when we sail down to meet the hunts.
I wish you would stay with us, Shelley. We need you here.
What? Would you have the hunts arrive with no one to meet them or help them?
You could help us more than them if you stayed.
Oh, what help do we need, Pexy?
You know I am unwell. And with all these children, this place, it's bedlam. And now Claire again, who must be comforted over lost Allegra.
Is Sister Claire the problem then?
Shelley, please.
What then, your father? I can hold him at bay easily enough.
Even Edward's Jane is worried about that boat of yours.
She only sides with you to spite the men.
Really? Would she do that?
Pexy, I will sail the Ariel, fly down the coast to Leghorn, and we will be back within the week. But what, Pexy? Mary, what is it?
Will you then publish your poems in your new magazine?
What? What poems? What do you mean?
The new lyrics you have been writing.
You mean the poems that I wrote for Edward to give to Jane, to his own life?
I know how to read your poetry, Shelley.
I suppose you'd be pleased enough if he read them to you. You talk to him more than you talk to me these days.
He listens.
So tell me, what would you have me do? Shall we throw the poems away then?
Shelley, please, let's not argue.
Tell me what you want. You want me to listen? I'm listening.
Please stay.
I will never leave you, Mother.
Dear boy, what a blessing you are. My great comfort. So real and steady. Now, shall we find you a good wife?
Ugh.
Don't scoff, son. The world needs good fathers and good wives.
Do not talk to me of wives, Mrs. Shelley. No more. I have known too many.
Indeed, Ellie, indeed you have.
And you, Mistress Mary, why have you never taken any husband?
I have felt no need, sir, beyond one.
And what are your needs, good Mary?
I would be a good mother and a good rider.
I heard no great passion in such talk, Mrs. Shelley.
If passions do not flash like lightning, my lord, can they not be great nonetheless?
Mary, you are truly the only blue stocking I have ever admired.
And I have always prized our friendship, my Lord Byron.
Cool and prescribed as ever.
The transcriptions are almost complete.
Yes, they are excellent as always, Mary. Do you not consider being a poet yourself? I know you have fires within, no matter how deep you may choose to keep them.
I have found, Albie, that I prefer to write entire lives. Novels are my pleasure. Even writing the lives of the literary and scientific men is pleasant for me. And I am good at such work. They have a kind of poetry too, I believe.
Indeed? I suppose, though most lives lack sufficient fire, I would say. Unless you might choose to write about my life.
I have already written the life story of one devil, my lord, and that has caused me grief enough.
Well, what about the biography of your angelic Shelley, then?
Sir Timothy still balks me. I can understand his objections to a boy's political rebellions, but when the grown son proves to have a genius, is he angry out of habit?
The old man is only a baronet, dearie. The smaller the dignity, the tighter the grip.
Wise words, my lord. Baron.
But the question for you should be how to turn the boy's rebellion into a manly revolution. And more important to me, however, is you have said you've already created the life of one devil. As if one devil were enough. How now, Mary? Have you called me a monster like your pieced-together giant?
I said devil, not monster, nor was Frankenstein's monster completely devilish. His intentions began as purely as any. We are all of us turned monster, are we not? By ourselves?
I would battle the entire army of Turks before I would debate with you, Mrs. Shelley. Now I can see what a terror it must have been to debate your mother.
Mother, I still have this question, this terrible question to ask of you.
Yes, Mary, as always.
Did I not? Did I murder you?
A newborn child cannot do murder, Mary. Surely you understand that.
I do, but if not for my being
What
born.
fault could you have? You might as well say, if not for men and women having babies, which is to say, if not for love and death.
Even so, I feel that I must be a monster.
Am I a monster? Their maid, you know. Am I a monster for making you?
Mother, please.
I was called a monster before you were ever born. Called a hyena, and for what? For daring to write a book.
Mother, I have been thinking about that.
Good.
Your vindication of the rights of woman.
Yes.
That a woman can sire a thought.
Go on.
That a sire is a creator, not male or female, a human who plants a seed.
Yes.
That I shall be sire of Shelley's poetry as he was sire of my Frankenstein.
People will call this hysteria, my dear.
I think not, and I care not. I have been thinking that Muse may be the same as sire.
Yes, go on.
Muse. Sire. Spirit.
You are very tired, Mary.
Exhausted, Mother. Spent.
Sweet Mary, monster sire. Shall I give you a secret to ponder?
Please.
Remember the angel with the fiery sword guarded the gates of Eden from Adam and Eve?
Yes.
Eden was heaven on earth, Mary. Right here on earth.
Yes. Go on.
An angel guarded the gates, Mary, not a demon. Fear is the barrier, and people will fear an angel as much as any demon.
Oh, Jane. How will we go on? I told them not to go. I know. I will try at least to do some work.
Oh, Mary,
This is a bill and another. We will bear up and help each other.
Without Edward, I don't know. Oh, and Mary, without our Shelley.
If I don't do something, I will die too, and we have the children to consider. Trelawney will continue to help us, and Byron.
Oh, how can you do this so cold? I need Edward.
This is from my father. Another of his horrid letters.
Oh, no, you mustn't. Shall I perhaps read it for you and help divide the pain?
Thank you, dear Jane. I can manage myself.
You bear up better than could have been imagined. But appearances are not to be relied on. It would have been a great relief to me to have had a few lines from yourself. I learned the news on Sunday. I was in hope to have my doubts and fears removed by a letter from yourself on Monday. I entertain the same hope today, again, disappointed. I shall hang in hope and fear on every post, knowing you cannot neglect me forever. All that I expressed to you about silence and not writing is now put an end to. I thought it criminal to intrude forever, deal sorrows of an unfortunate old man. But you are now fallen to my own level. You are surrounded with adversity, and I shall no longer hold it sacrilege to trouble you with my adversities. We shall now truly sympathize, and whatever misfortune or ruin falls upon me, I will lay it fully before you.
He asks about money.
Mary, he's only being an foolish old man. You should have never seen such a letter. Shelley would never have let you.
What?
How can he talk to you that way?
He expects me to be stoic, the philosopher's daughter.
He expects too much.
Yes, he always has.
Would a parent ever willingly destroy a child?
I must answer yes.
But why?
May I offer as an example Abraham among the Hebrews?
But Abraham did not destroy Isaac.
But he would have.
We are fools then to make much of the natural power of a progenitor's love.
Many and many a mother has died for love of a child, dear monster.
And fathers, do they not decree the deaths of children?
I do not speak for fathers.
I must tell you, speaking of fathers, I remain confused about how I can be real. I have so many doubts and questions.
We all have doubts. I have answered your question so many times.
The question remains.
And so it does. I fear that you are becoming more real.
Nonsense. You have said this before.
Nonsense.
Not nonsense. Sense. Knotted and knotted again.
Nonsense and babble.
Shall I give you an example of knotted sense?
No.
Nevertheless, proposition that the grave robber is the Antichrist.
And the proof?
Eternal rest grant unto them, O Lord. The resurrectionist steals their rest, ergo, the resurrectionist steals the eternal life that would be heavenly.
Your proposition is flawed, my monster, and very likely blasphemous.
Pardon, sire, but I am neither a Socrates nor a theologian, only the patched-together voice of a storyteller.
Ah, only a storyteller.
And a lady storyteller.
Lady storyteller. Do you deny me, Peter?
Pardon, sire, in all these years, I rarely hear you laugh. Why must I be mute?
You are not mute. You speak, you have doubts.
But people think me mute.
They will not have you a thinker. They must have you a dumb animal. They are afraid of you.
That seems nonsense to me. How are they afraid of your imagination?
Oh no, they are afraid of their imagination. They fear the human imagination. And you are out in the world now.
Ah, Rion!
Excellent. My monster, you understand now that you can be real. The thought thinks. Something is happening to you, my monster. You are growing. Do you understand growing, becoming anew?
I'm not sure I do understand.
The idea is that you become a different you. I have an example that has been much on my mind.
Yes, I am listening.
I am told that trees have two kinds of wood within, heartwood and sapwood. The heartwood at the center of the tree is older, dark, and very hard. The new outer growth just beneath the bark is called sapwood.
Yes, continue.
Some trees become hollow, the heartwood dies, but the trees live on because the new sapwood can alone sustain the life. Is that not remarkable? A hollow tree can grow to great heights with new branches and bright leaves.
And that is the meaning.
Don't you see? The tree may live even though it dies, and heartwood, if it be harvested, is enormously strong. May we not say even resurrected? Is that not a worthy afterlife, to be turned into some noble work useful in the world?
Harvesting. Does it suffer?
What?
Does the tree suffer?
Trees do not suffer. No one knows.
I don't know why she must act so morbid and hurt. She was not so loving when Shelley was still alive and needed her. We lived together in the same house in Italy, and we could all see it. Shelley was so open to others. He was always helping them, and he turned always to beauty. But Mary was so cold, she just drove him away. The poor man began writing poems to me. Poor Shelley did try, though. She would have bled to death. He helped her, saved her life. She was, you know, and with no doctor available, Percy Shelley nursed her himself. Not even a month later, we lost him and Edward forever. Jane Williams says that Mary was heartless to Shelley. He was always off in that little boat just to get away from her. Jane was Shelley's muse. But Jane is devoted to Mary, and they often walk out together. So Jane says Mary must not know these things. She's weak and morbid enough already.
Jane Williams, my closest friend, has proved false and treacherous. Miserable discovery. For years I have been devoted to her. Am I not a fool? Who can sustain the mortal sadness of such a discovery? Of such a tale of horror and despair? Not for worlds would I transfer the deathly blackness of these meditations to my writings. Writing, study, quiet. What was my sin? Why am I left so alone? Another ancient mariner, antique traveler.
Master, how are you alone?
I am hounded.
Dogged?
So, the monster does not know its creator entirely.
Do you laugh at me?
What have I gained? Nothing gets better. No one is saved.
Are you praying? Who would you save?
Maybe I am wicked.
Possibly. But you're not alone.
of dawns.
No, no! Are you not the most famous parent in Europe? A creator, the
I feel alone!
Who would you have with you?
My Shelley.
Back from death?
Yes, from death. Why was he not afraid? Why did he never bother to swim? How could I save him if he would not be saved?
You know a way.
What way?
Piece him together.
Do you not believe that possible, Mrs. Shelley?
Excuse me, Richard, what?
I'm sorry, Mrs. Shelley. I did not mean to upset you.
No, Mr. Rothwell, please repeat the question.
I said that I hesitate. Madam, you seem
Please,
so
Richard, continue.
I surmise, that is, that you have become more famous than your father or your mother.
But Shelley, a great poet enhances the meaning of the age, Richard.
Yes, madam.
He is not simply to disappear like Ozymandias.
No, madam.
His work will ring out. He carries forward the hope of humanity.
Yes.
Shelley loved light. On a tree, on a cloud, on the spray of a wave. No dark forces for him. Whom did he kill ever? He looked for love and found patches of light shining. So many others for God, for country, dishonoring, destroyed, but he was not afraid. Why, Shelley did not fear death itself. We can still have Shelley. We have his part.
What?
History saves two kinds, Mr. Rothwell. Those who act and those who translate the actions. My Shelley, my mother, their words and deeds will continue. That is the great mark. Cruel Achilles is only a name. King Arthur is but a story. Percy Bysshe Shelley shall not soon pass away.
Nor will you, Miss Mary, if I may be so bold.
I? Why, Mr. Rothwell, I do believe you harbor some of your own intimations of immortality.
Indeed, madam. Who does not?
Yes, I will not be nearly that poor thing. I will comfort me with writing. White paper can be an excellent companion. Does the blank canvas work that way for you, Mr. Rothwell?
Blank canvas and pen. You are beyond me, madam. I try to paint well and always as well as I can. But I believe you need something more. Perhaps we should rest.
No, I do not need a rest. Let us complete this portrait if we must have one.
I must tell you, you have ignored a kind of monster.
Then tell me.
One who tortures others for pleasure or advantage.
There's no saving us from such monsters.
Why must we be saved?
Most assuredly we must be.
Your assurance means little enough to me. You know, there is a hat for every mouse.
What does that mean?
You and I are much alike.
How so?
We are both alone.
All around me, my beloved die, my friends betray me.
I have no beloved. I have no friends.
A sole survivor.
No.
No?
The only one. Ever.
I am so lonely.
I'm lonelier than you.
But you have me. Monster.
Tell me, what is death?
Death. Death is the ending of life.
But I have not died. You would not let me die.
You disappear into an icy, unlivable wasteland.
But I live on in your mind.
My mind will die.
Will I then die with you when your mind dies?
Curious question. How do you pose such a question?
Do you not keep alive the mind of Percy Bysshe Shelley?
What do you know of my Shelley's mind?
I do not know. I only ponder monsters.
Shelley was no monster.
Percy Patchwork Shelley?
Be gone!
Oh, now I am the Satan again.
I must say, I am confounded by your idea of history, Mrs. Shelley.
What do you mean, sir?
You said to me earlier that only two kinds of people make history.
Did I? Perhaps I've forgotten.
Ah, you see, madam, that is part of what bothers me.
What did I say?
That history comes from doers and from people who write down what those people do.
Oh, yes, of course. I remember.
But may I presume you would include pagans with your writings? That is, people who record the actions of the great, but perhaps in
Yes, I understand. I do agree with you, sir.
Good. Then I must consider my own experience as a portrait painter. Does that seem reasonable?
Indeed, sir. I must add that we are now being terribly Socratic for such an afternoon.
Forgive me if I parse.
No, continue. I quite like the idea. Words and paint can both do civilizing work.
Excellent. Then here is my thought, that people are not to be understood at a glance or in a moment. I must study them. I must take notes as a sitting such as this one. And I try to different points of view. I change my mind, I even forget.
And what do you conclude?
That we do not exactly record with the great do. We only have some moments that seem to us useful.
And we compose these moments into portraits. The eyes are the windows of the soul.
Yes, and I try to look in. But how much have I missed in a painting of a face? Not what the great have actually done, but only what I may imagine about them.
And even that can be lost or forgotten or misunderstood. And I believe I take your meaning. But perhaps by looking into the soul, your painter is also one of the doers amid the kings and the conquerors. Imagining is also a kind of doing, yes?
I must agree, madam.
My question is, do you ever make people look more romantic than they are?
I must be brave, madam.
And can such reimagining save us in any way?
Let us hope, Mrs. Shelley.
Excellent, Richard. Then people can...
Yes, I agree now. You are certainly wrong about monsters.
Must you ever interrupt my thoughts?
You believe that people improve, don't you?
I believe they should, yes.
Why do you?
Because we can learn.
Nonsense.
A monstrous thought.
I am a monster, and they are your thoughts. Regardless, I think that you are wrong.
You think, do you?
I think you are only talking about hope.
I do hope, but I also do learn.
I think they are not the same. Do you really believe that if you can make someone understand something foreign to them, that they are improved, that you can make them learn to love something? Shelley,
Yes.
Why do you?
It is another step forward. My parents taught people just as I can make my husband teach people love.
You hope.
Daughters can learn as well as sons, wives, peasants, anyone.
But will they? Do they? Do they even want to?
We are right to hope.
Ah, yes. You are certainly wrong about monsters.
What thing? What don't I understand?
You think that you don't want monsters, but are you about to create another?
You confound me.
Confound yourself.
What a world. The monster presumes to instruct the maker.
The maker will not listen to the monster.
I listen! From the beginning, I have been trying to listen.
Let us hope. Let us hope.
And now, madam, voila. I declare we are finished with our sitting here for this portrait of the famed author, Mary Shelley.
Please, Rothwell. I hesitate. I would still prefer not to put myself forward.
As you say yourself, we are pinned to the page or we disappear. But perhaps I may comfort you with this knowledge anyway, that I have no place to exhibit the portrait at this moment.
Very well. Let us see this outside view of yours. She looks to me somehow sad.
Ah, but she is actually smiling. Do you see? As the poet has poets, our sincerest laughter with some pain is fraught.
Oh, he lives. You have been reading my Shelley.